It's wild to think about, but the most expensive item per square inch at a modern wedding is uh, usually the one that just ends up in the trash.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost a given at this point.
Right, so just picture the scene for a second. You're at a wedding, you've just finished this incredibly heavy, three-course meal.
You're completely stuck.
Exactly. And then the lights dim, the music swells, and out rolls this centuries-old tradition, a towering, fondant-draped, meticulously frosted, multi-tiered cake.
Which, to be fair, looks stunning in the photographs.
It does. But if you fast forward like 30 minutes and actually look around the tables, what do you see?
A graveyard of half-eaten slices, just smeared buttercream abandoned on little glass plates while everyone, migrates to the dance floor.
That is the exact visual. So today on The Deep Dive, we are unpacking a stack of sources, including some really fascinating culinary insights and data from the wedding platform Weddizer.
They've got some incredible data on this, actually.
They really do. And our mission today is to look at this massive wave of couples who are looking at that wasted fondant and just completely flipping the script.
Yeah, they are totally reimagining the whole concept.
Right. We are looking at the rising trend of savory cakes. So couples are basically replacing sugar and sponge with artisanal cheese, charcuterie, and coastal seafood.
It's a huge shift. They're creating these highly customized, highly interactive culinary experiences instead.
But, before we talk about what these things actually look like, we have to establish why this is happening.
Right, the psychology behind it, because it really represents a fundamental shift in the psychology of hosting.
Okay, unpack that for me. Because for generations, the sweet wedding cake has been this untouchable monolith. You just didn't question it.
No, you didn't. But what the sources highlight is that modern couples are prioritizing authenticity over convention. They're looking at the traditional wedding blueprint and basically auditing it.
Like doing things because they actually want to, not just because they have to.
Exactly. They are asking themselves, does a massive sugar bomb at 10 o'clock at night actually reflect how we like to eat, drink, and entertain?
Right, and for most adults, the answer is just no. But I do want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
Because when I hear savory cake, a dark corner of my brain immediately flashes to like some weird 1950s savory meatloaf shaped like a wedding tear.
Oh, no, that is a horrifying image.
Right. Or, a terrifying Jell-O mold with hot dogs suspended in it. I mean, there is an undeniable nostalgia tied to a sweet wedding cake.
There is, for sure.
So what about the traditionalists? Are couples just replacing a classic moment with a temporary internet gimmick just to be different?
Well, first of all, that 1950s meatloaf image is thankfully entirely inaccurate here. This is definitely not a gimmick. It's a genuine evolution of high-end catering.
Okay, so it's actual luxury food, not a prank.
Exactly. And to answer the question about the traditionalists, like the grandparents, it actually bridges the generational gap beautifully once they experience it in person.
Really? How so?
Well, the problem with the traditional sweet cake is menu fatigue. By the time dessert rolls around, your guests have been eating rich, heavy foods for hours.
Oh, right. The dreaded sugar coma.
Yes. A massive hit of sugar often induces a total crash, It sends older guests home and the younger guests sprinting to the bar for caffeine. A savory cake bypasses the sugar coma entirely.
I see. So it keeps the energy up.
Exactly. And from a social dynamic standpoint, it changes the entire geometry of the reception. Think about it. A traditional cake is a solitary experience.
Right, it's cut in the corner, and a piece is just set in front of you while you sit there.
Yeah, but a savory cake acts as a grazing centerpiece. It actually forces movement.
Oh, it's the water cooler effect.
Yes, exactly.
Because a traditional cake is almost like a cinema screen. We all just sit passively and watch it happen. But the savory tower acts like the office water cooler. It dictates traffic flow and brings people together to mingle.
That is the perfect analogy. It completely alters the kinetic energy of the room. It takes the static, expected moment and turns it into an interactive surprise.
Which works brilliantly for modern cocktail-style receptions. Okay, so if the goal is to keep guests mingling, how does a caterer actually build something that facilitates that?
Well, this is where it gets really fun.
Because looking through the Weddizer inspiration galleries, we are not talking about like a flat buffet tray of cheese cubes here.
No.
These are literal feats of culinary architecture.
They really are.
I originally thought of it as this elegant game of edible Jenga, but it's actually much closer to structural engineering. What are couples physically putting in the room?
The structural aspect is fascinating. The sources detail 5 distinct types of savory cakes dominating the industry right now.
Okay, lay them out for me.
Well, they fall into a few structural categories. Let's start with the cheese wheel cakes.
Which look incredibly luxurious. I mean, they have the height and grandeur of a traditional cake, but it's entirely cheese.
Right.
But how do you stack a soft wheel of cheese under a denser one without it turning into, like, a dairy avalanche?
It requires a deep understanding of weight distribution. You actually build it exactly the opposite of how you might assume.
Oh, really? Heavy on the bottom.
Yes. The base has to be a wide, structurally sound wheel think, a 20-pound cloth-bound cheddar, or really dense aged Gouda.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then the middle tiers move into semi-hard cheeses like Manchego or a firm Gruyere, and the top tier is reserved for your soft, delicate cheeses, like a wheel of creamy camembert.
Got it. But are they just resting directly on top of each other?
Usually no. Caterers use hidden acrylic plates and internal doweling, exactly like a tiered sponge cake.
Oh, wow, so it is actual cake architecture.
Precisely. That ensures the heavy wheels don't crush the softer ones over a 3-hour reception.
That's brilliant. What's the next type?
The other heavy-duty style mentioned in the sources is the bread and cheese tower. This is pure rustic elegance.
Bread is a cake. How does that work?
Caterers essentially interlock crusty artisan boules, baguettes, and then tuck in rich butter and spreads.
Oh, so the crust of the bread itself acts as the structural support.
Exactly. It creates this beautiful, hearty centerpiece that is just perfect for our countryside setting.
Okay, the cheese wheels and bread towers make total sense to me. You have solid objects to stack. But what about things that aren't solid?
Right, the sculpted grazers. The sources mention charcuterie cakes and Mediterranean cakes.
Yeah, if you are dealing with sliced meats and roasted vegetables, you don't have a solid wheel to stack. How do you construct a Mediterranean cake out of hummus without it just looking like a pile of dip?
That's where the culinary mortar comes in.
Culinary mortar.
Yeah, for a Mediterranean cake, caterers aren't just piling loose ingredients. They use thick, structurally sound bases, like a dense whipped feta or labneh.
Labneh, so like a strained yogurt that holds its shape.
Exactly. They layer that with thick, grilled slabs of zucchini, roasted eggplant, and sun-dried tomatoes.
But how does it stay standing up?
They use professional ring molds to press the layers into perfect geometric cake tiers. Once the mold is removed, the thick spreads act as a cement.
That is brilliant. The ring molds give it that sharp, cake-like silhouette, so it actually looks like a cake tier.
It holds the colorful vegetables in a vibrant, standing masterpiece, and the same technique applies to the charcuterie cake.
So they aren't just slapping flat meat on a plate.
No, caterers use culinary folding techniques. They take ribbons of prosciutto, salami, and cured meats and fold them to create vertical volume.
Oh, so they look almost like flowers.
Right. They intersperse these meat rosettes with hard cheeses, olives, and artisan crackers to build a three-dimensional, sculpted tower.
So guests can literally just walk up and pull a perfectly folded piece of prosciutto right off the tier.
Exactly. Which brings us to the final type, the seafood tower.
Now, if I walk into a luxury wedding and see a tiered display loaded with smoked salmon, chilled shrimp, and fresh oysters on the half shell, I'm going to remember that forever.
Oh, it's a massive statement piece.
But I also have to ask, a towering display of raw oysters sitting in the middle of a warm reception hall. That sounds like an absolute food safety nightmare.
Well, it is the ultimate logistical hurdle for caterers, for sure. It's why the seafood tower is considered top-tier luxury.
How do they keep it chilled while keeping it pretty?
You cannot treat raw seafood like a fondant cake that just sits by the window for 4 hours. The mechanics involve hidden temperature control.
Like built-in refrigeration.
Essentially, the tiered stands are often custom-built with hollow cores packed with dry ice. Or the tiers themselves are deep trays filled with crushed ice that is constantly draining into a hidden reservoir.
So it's a refrigerated sculpture. That is incredible.
And they use a rapid deployment strategy, too. A seafood tower is often dramatically revealed and assembled just before service.
So it doesn't sit out all night.
Right. They adhere to strict 90-minute rotation windows to ensure everything remains perfectly chilled and safe.
That level of orchestration is wild. But, if we connect this structural engineering to what happens when the food actually hits the palate, what does this mean for the bar?
Oh, this is one of the best parts.
Because you can't exactly pair a hoppy IPA or a dry martini with a slice of funfetti cake. If everyone is suddenly eating oysters and aged Gouda at 9 o'clock at night, how does that fundamentally change the drink menu?
It elevates the beverage program entirely. mostly because it fixes a glaring flaw in traditional wedding dining.
Which is what?
Think about the classic toast. Everyone raises a glass of dry, acidic champagne, takes a sip, and then takes a bite of intensely sweet cake.
Right. And suddenly the champagne tastes incredibly bitter and, like, flat.
Because it is. The sugar in the cake overwhelms your palate. It strips the fruit notes from the wine and leaves only that harsh acidity.
Wow, so it is objectively a terrible culinary pairing.
Yes. But a savory cake flips that chemistry completely. When you serve a towering cheese wheel cake, the high milk fat in the cheese coats the palate.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right, so when you follow that with champagne, the acidity and the bubbles cut right through that fat, cleansing the palate and harmonizing the flavors perfectly.
That is a massive aha moment for me.
Yeah.
We've been pairing dry wine with sugar for decades, just for the photo op, totally ignoring the flavor clash.
Exactly. And by serving a savory centerpiece, your drink options expand exponentially. The sources highlight that beyond sparkling wine and rosé, couples are bringing in craft beer.
Oh, craft beer at the cake cutting.
Yeah, the malt and hops in a rich stout or a crisp pilsner pair phenomenally well with those rustic bread and cheese towers.
What about cocktails?
You can design signature cocktails with botanical gins or herbal infusions that complement the flavor profile of the Mediterranean cake